Hello Captains, this is Kent again and welcome to the Flight Show. I have a unique experience for you today. I'm doing a kind of a review of the Aerosoft CRJ 700 and 900 that's recently been released. If you recall my show that I put on before, I talked about the aircraft that was done by Virtual Call. It's not a study level rendition of the CRJ, but for what it was, I actually liked it and gave it some positive reviews. So now I have an opportunity to do a contrast comparison. So as you know, I like to gear my series towards people who are new to Flight Simulator and kind of go over the basics. And right now, I'm going to get to give you a really good comparison by, if you look at my show talking about the Virtual Call version of the CRJ, you're going to be able to contrast that against a study level aircraft, which is the exact same aircraft, which in this case is going to be the Aerosoft version of CRJ. There are similarities and there are differences, but at the same time, I'm going to give you a little bit of a review of the aircraft. So as you can see, as I'll turn on my head tracker. It's a nicely rendered cockpit. I was looking at one person reviewing it and I said, well, this isn't high res, this is a disappointment. But, I'll have to be honest, I was not disappointed with what I saw when I saw the cockpit. It's pretty good as far as I'm concerned. But I do understand that there are higher resolutions. But I take that with a grain of salt, because what I'm looking for playability as well as aesthetic beauty. And aesthetically, I'm actually happy with it, but this is, merely my opinion. Now, what I will say right off, one of the cons that I have is that I usually use 3 monitors for my videos. But to do a video, if I recorded it in 3 monitors, it would only look normal on a 3-monitor system, and I know the majority of people out there don't have 3 monitors. So to do these recordings, I have to do it on 1. But I'm so accustomed to being able to see so many things, particularly the Autopilot, that in order to do things on a screen, it's easier if I'm using my peripherals, like the SATEC multi-panel or the Insight VR, or the VR Insight MCP panel. Well, this program at this particular point doesn't work with either of them. A little bit of a frustration, and you'll kind of see why as we go through this. Now, I'm going to actually do the exact same flight that I did when I reviewed the Virtual Call version of the CRJ. So we're going to go from NEAT to GENOA. And let's just kind of get started. Now, like I said before, in these reviews, this isn't like kind of a fully loaded level sort of departure and flight like you would get with Frugal. This is just more of an opportunity for you to see the aircraft in doing what it does, and for me to give you kind of some insight on it, so that you can feel better maybe about a purchase that you made, or that you're really on the fence and still trying to decide. So excuse the lack of flight procedures. Some I follow, some I don't, but understand the focus is to give you an opportunity to see what this aircraft is, what it offers, and if you really want to go, purchase it or not. So let's go ahead and get a view from the outside before we push back. As you can see, I'm even using the same livery. I think I'm relatively near the same gate, don't quote me on that. But it's a nicely rendered aircraft. I mean, I have no issues with, oh, sorry for that jump. I'm gonna have to use my keyboard for this. But I have no issues with the exterior model. Actually, it is top notch. It really is. If we look at the wing views, we can set those using Chase Plane or Easy Dock if that's what you prefer. I have to say that thus far, so far so good. So let's go ahead and do pushback right, real fast. And as I mentioned before, this is my neat scenery. You will see everything about what's in this video in the show notes below. So please feel free to check this out. Now, the lighting rendering is really nice. It's not hurting my frame rates. I'm recording locked at 30 frames per second. I suppose I can adjust that. Using fraps, I could go higher, but 30 seems to be, you know, a nice smooth rate, so that's what I'm going to do for right now. But what's really interesting is, without recording, the frame rates were anywhere from 30 to as much as 58. And why that's really cool is because when I do my recordings on multiple screens, that's going to drop because it has to render more. But it doesn't drop that far. So it's a really nice experience as far as if you're using a single monitor or a multi-monitor. I noticed quite a few reviews kind of neglect to bring that particular point up because they'll say, well, you know, I'm getting these great frame rates, but they're making the assumption that everyone's using a single monitor. And there are a lot of people out there that like to get the full cockpit view, and they use a full monitor. So, okay, we've just pushed back. So here's where we would actually, you know, add our notch of flaps. Now, I've already put in the navigation aids for this, so you're not gonna have to watch me load up the CDU. But as you can see, oh my gosh, my navs are not there. Oh, they should have been saved from the previous copy. What do I do? I don't want to have to bore you with doing all this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut away, and we'll come back with all the navs put in. Hey, we're back. You know, I kind of thought about this. Maybe this is something that you wanted to see, just to give you an idea, since this is a general review. So I'm going to go ahead and do some of this loading of the navigation aids with you. So if you are accustomed to a Boeing series like the 767, the 777, or the 747, this is going to look really familiar to you. So right now we're at our flight plan page. And how we handle this is we're going to give it our waypoint. So we're going to go with L, F, M, N for Nice. And did I put that in? No, I didn't put that in right. Oh, did I spell that wrong? Let's see. L, F, M, N. And we put it on origin. Right, okay, I screwed something up there. And then we're going to L, I, M, J. So L, I, got our navs in there. Okay, our cruising altitude is going to be 18,000 feet. Did I put that in wrong? Okay, we're just going to go with this. And our departure runway is going to be 04 right. So we're going to put that directly in right here. Oh, this is not our alternate altitude, this is our alternate destination. Okay, so I'll tell you, it's all great when it's live. We're going to be at LIMZ as our alternate. Okay, got that right there. Our flight number, we're just going to go with Lufthansa Airlines 356. That'll all get in there. There we go. All right. So now we're going to continue, and by the way, unlike the Airbuses, just like the Boeings, you'll hit the execute command that gets that set in. Now, over here we have where we're putting what I was anticipating is putting in our cruising altitude, which is 18,000 feet. It'll go right there. But it also wants to know an alternate cruising altitude, which was kind of new to me. But I'm going to just put in 10,000 feet for now, okay? Good deal. And our number of passengers, so I've got that over here because this comes with a side program that basically lets you do all of your calculations for weight, passengers, and so forth. So I'm just going to look over here, and what is our total number of passengers is 62. So let's get that in, 62 passengers. There, and it automatically assumes what the weight is. Our cargo, let's see, our cargo is listed at where is it? Total cargo 1,089 right there. Okay, and our total amount of fuel required is 4,235. 4,235. I have that right? Just making sure. 4,235. Okay, got that in there, and it makes the rest of the calculations. Okay, execute that. Good to go. And then VNAV setup. We're not going to worry about that right about now. Okay, so we got our destination in, so on and so forth. Now, we'll go over here to departure. We already have, as you know earlier, we plugged in what our departure runway is. So we just need to get our SID. So for the flight plan that I have loaded, our SID is FSX-SE. So let's just scroll. I think I already passed that, right? Yeah, there we go. FSX-SE, that's taken care of. Execute that bad boy. You can even see up here, I'm automatically put in the waypoints for that, so that's good. And we can go to depart arrival, and we can go ahead and put in 28Y. And our star for this arrival is going to be GENOA, which is right here. Okay, now we can execute that and go to flight plan. And we can go ahead and put in our waypoint. So we're going to go to the next page. See, this is very familiar with if you're used to the Boeings. So now we're going to use the airway Y15. Put that in there. And we will exit that airway at ABN, or Alpha Bravo November. Bravo November. Put that right here. Okay. And let's see, did I miss anything? I think I messed something up. No, Y15 ABN. And okay, so now we have our discontinuity. So we can get rid of our discontinuities very easily. We can just, let's see, go here to legs, and we look for our discontinuities. I keep thinking this is a Boeing, so I just messed that up. Hold on, we're going to go to our legs. Oh yeah, we need to execute, by the way. All right, so now let's go to our legs, and we're going to move this into, we're going to bring that up so it actuates here, and then we close it by putting it in the missing spot. Close that. Good. Now we go to see if we have any more discontinuities or discos, as they'll use in the jargon. No, we're good to go. All right, that didn't take long, so now you'll see that if you're used to programming the CDU for the Boeings, you're going to feel very comfortable and very familiar when you're doing it for the CRJ. Now, you have here the ability to have your V-speeds input. Now, I'm still figuring that out, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by messing around with it in front of you, but you have a chart that is given to you in the PDFs of how you determine what your V-speeds are supposed to be. I have some ballpark. I'm going to use some ballpark figures that I used for the vertical version, and so for I'm not going to put them in, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go over here to my speed, and I am going to raise my basically V2 to about 150. I'm ballparking this, just letting you know, it's a ballpark figure. 150 knots. And our cruising altitude, I'm going to just go ahead and put our cruising altitude at 18,000 feet. This is not a very long flight. I think it's like 126 miles. So we're just going to put it at 18, and we'll go from there. All right, so we've got all that in. We should have done this pushing back, but, you know, like I said, we're winging it here. All right, so now we're going to just go clear on the left. Let's see here. Clear on the left, clear on the right. All right, so let's go ahead and get our taxi on. Just checking. I did put on my taxi lights. Yes, they are on. And I think you can tell that the frame rates are looking pretty smooth. Now, sometimes we get locked into the whole frame rate thing. Oh my gosh, what are my frame rates? But you sometimes have to weigh your frame rates against is it smooth and fluid. And sometimes those are two values that are not necessarily, you know, indicative of each other. Just because it has great frames, it could still be choppy, and that's for a variety of reasons. But as you can see, this is not entirely bad. Now, I have my displays, which are down here, I have them exported to another monitor so I can see them better, because at this distance they're a little hard to see. So over here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the display that's here on the right, I'm sorry, on my left, that is my primary display. And then over here to the right is the multifunction display. And that shows a variety of different information, like obviously your waypoints. So we're going to go ahead and taxi across the airway. I don't think we got anybody on approach. Okay. Didn't talk to ACC. You know what? He still owes me lunch. We're just going to like overlook that. I'll get back to him on Thursday. It'll be cool. But we are going to be departing from runway. We already said this, 4 right, if I remember correctly. And so we're going to go ahead. And again, this is really the same flight that we did in the previous video. Now, to contrast the differences, oh, by the way, your co-pilot, he sometimes clears his throat over there. I still have to go through the manual to see if there is like, kind of like the Airbus version, if the co-pilot takes some of the load. I thought I remembered seeing something about that, but I haven't had a chance to really dig into this, which is the interesting thing. This is called study level, and study level is not an arbitrary word. You really have to put some time into learning this aircraft. So there's not really a word that we use for the more basic flight model, so I kind of came up with, we're going to see if this actually catches on. I distinguish these into 2 different aircraft: basic flight model and study level. Basic flight model, they will not have as many dynamic systems. You can basically get into the cockpit and get flying. Whereas a study level is much more complex. You're going to need to read the manual, go through the tutorials to really learn all of the systems that are offered with this aircraft. So again, the Aerosoft version is study level. Study level, and again, I know there are a bunch of you who might be looking at this and like, dude, I know that, but remember who we're targeting here. I mean, I want this for everybody, but I want to also make sure that for people who are new to Flight Simulator, they don't get overlooked in terms of the jargon. So I always try to make sure I explain things at a very basic level, and then I build upon those basic principles. So anyway, study level is just that. You've got to put time into learning in all the systems. And that makes it difficult to kind of necessarily really know a multitude of study level aircraft, because you got to put time into them. So you can, I don't know. Some people don't have a problem with being a jack of all trades and a master of none, but I really I really like being a master of a real aircraft. And I have to say, of all of my study level aircraft, if there's one that I'm the most familiar with, it's probably PMDG 747. But this one is really, kind of growing on me. And I'm going to explain why in just a moment. But we've got business to do right now. So let's just take a look. We're going to jump over to this seat. And we see that we're clear on the approach. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Taxiing into position. We have our trim set. Alright, so what you should do is basically power this up to halfway to get the engines going, and once they're stabilized, go ahead and give it full throttle. Now, something that you should understand about the CRJ, and this doesn't matter if this doesn't matter if it's the study level or the basic aircraft. The CRJ is not designed with auto throttle. And that's a significant thing, because I think if you're used to flying a lot of different aircraft off of Simulator, Prepar3D V4, here we go, nose is taking off. So we are now airborne, positive rate of climb, gear up.
Terrain. Pull up.
And notice how our speed is shooting up, so we're going to pull back on our throttle. We're going to raise up and flaps. So let's go ahead. Now here, again, is the first issue that I have when it comes to this. I'm going to have to go to another screen to zoom in and get everything going. So we got our autopilot. We're going to altitude, and we're going to nav. Just make sure everything's going well. Now our rate of climb needs to come down a bit. It will. All right, now, because we're now turning on our navs. I should mention to you, okay, so now let's get this whole altitude thing together. What we need to do is turn on our vertical speed and then set
sync rate.
I'm really messing that up. We need to get our vertical speed together. And now that we have our vertical speed set, I've set it for 1,400 feet per minute. And I turned off my autopilot because I gave it too much stick in terms of its, okay, so there we go. I think we're good to go now. Now, I'm going to turn our heading to go just straight forward because, you know, yeah, I'm trying to be professional. And right now our plane is trying to find, what's going on? Oh my gosh, not enough fun. Okay, hopefully we're not going to be embarrassed by our first crash. That was our stall warning. Now, this is actually good that I went through this because I want you to understand how this throttle thing needs to work.
1,000.
Auto throttle, what it's going to do is it is going to adjust the thrust. Auto throttle, I'm going to lower the nose so that we can gain speed again. And I apologize for this mistake. I'm trying to do a lot of things at once, but it's really going to help you understand how to handle this aircraft. Okay, now that we have our speed together. Okay. Again, this is one of the reasons that I really am not happy that I don't have the benefit of using my panels. But that's all right. We're going to make this work. Remember what they're saying, you know, in pilot school, they tell you, trust your instruments. So I don't necessarily have to be looking out of the cockpit to know what's going on because I learned to trust my instruments. There we go. Okay, so our airspeed seems to be dropping. Now, as I was saying earlier, your auto throttle on, say, a 747, a 777, or a 737 will adjust its thrust so that you will have the desired speed as you are trying to attain a desired altitude. Okay? Now, that's not the way the CRJ works. What it's going to do is it's going to take, it has a device or a button which will say indicated airspeed. So when you tell it what airspeed you want, it is going to adjust the pitch of the aircraft to attain that particular speed. Now, that being said, you are responsible for giving it the thrust such that it will attain that speed at the given altitude or vertical airspeed that has been so designated. So it really puts the workload on you, the pilot, because you're going to have to, instead of just trusting that your auto throttle is going to adjust to achieve a given speed that you want, you are going to have to monitor the thrust to make sure that you're not going to bust your airspeed by going over 250 knots if you're below 10,000 feet, or that you reach overspeed at a higher altitude. Your thrust will not adjust for that. All the speed system in the, or should I say the indicated airspeed button on the autopilot is going to do is adjust the pitch of your aircraft such that you can climb or descend at a given speed setting. You have to control the throttles. So when your indication, you know, gets to that you're at your speed, you're going to have to pull back on the throttles or push forward on it. So your workload is going to be a bit more, which is actually kind of cool. Who just wants to sit there and do nothing, you know? But anyway, I'm glad we had this little opportunity so that you could see that in action. Now, it also goes back to my annoyance. It would have been so much easier for me to fly the airplane and handle that. Because remember, in a real aircraft, you've got a co-pilot. They could be handling some of this while you're busy flying the plane. But if you're by yourself, it is very difficult to move the screen over, handle this stuff, fly the plane, and, you know, much less talking to you for the flight show. It would have been so much easier if I had this working with my multi-panel, so that I could just use the dial and the knob, and I could keep the view here so that I have a better situational awareness to handle the systems that I need to handle. Okay, so now that we have things stabilized, and we're in our climb, I am just going to give this a little bit more vertical airspeed. I'm going to give it ascension rate of 2,000 feet per minute. And as you can see, my speed is starting to drop. So I have to give it more thrust so that we do not lose airspeed for this rate of ascension. But we also don't want to bust 250 knots, so we have to keep an eye on this. Okay. Just to give you a quick glance out of the window, scenery is beautiful. We're at 8,000 feet. As you can look in the show notes, you can see the type of scenery that I have. I am running Orbx Global. I'm also using the European land class, and also FS Ultimate World Mesh. All of that put together is giving you this look that you see out of the cockpit. And okay, so we're also, I don't know if you can see this on the screen, but we're rocking right now about 38 frames per second. And here's something else I want to point out. It will be, if you have a similar system, like I'm running, you can see it in the show notes below, but I'm running an i7 4790. If I'm getting 30 frames per second recording, remember we gotta drop the throttle here. Remember when you're screen capturing and recording video, your frame rates drop. So if I'm doing 30 with recording, I'm going to be doing about 45, maybe even 50 in some cases when I'm not recording. So it's actually going to be better for you than you're going to look at it in the video if you have a similar system. Now, something else that I will point out on the difference between the CRJ and the Virtual Call, the throttle system is more exaggerated. Exaggerated is really not the word. The difference is your engines do not react as readily in the CRJ Aerosoft. Now, I've never flown a CRJ, so I'm not to say, but what this suggests is the engines do not spool up as readily as the Virtual Call version of the CRJ, or the default that you would get in Flight Simulator 10. And that tends to make sense because, you know, remember the tutorial in Flight Simulator 10 where you did Introduction to Jets and they were telling you, hey, engines do not, jet engines do not react as quickly as turboprops. You have to think ahead. Well, you definitely need to think ahead here. These engines do not spool up as fast as you might be accustomed to if you're accustomed to the CRJ in default, or you bought a copy of the Virtual CRJ. These need a little bit more time, and they really have their best power when you're closer to full throttle. So again, you have got to plan ahead. Now, we're above 10,000 feet, so I'm going to go ahead and give us a little bit more speed. And we're going to do, I remember doing the tutorial for this, and they were saying a good speed is going to be 280 knots. So I'm going to just match that right about now. As you can see, we are following our navigation that has been put into our flight computer. So things are looking good. Now, they, as you can see, do not automatically calculate your speeds. So, because you don't have an auto throttle, so why would it? So I'm just going to put in here 280 knots at 18,000 feet. And 280 knots at 18,000 feet. Okay. When we are about to, obviously here I want to be lower, so I'm going to put this at 210 for right now. And then when we're down at 4,000, I'm going to put this at, I think I'm going to put this at 180 knots. I think that's pretty standard, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, there we go. So this is actually very familiar. Now, you are also treated to over here. It looks kind of like an iPad, but I know the iPad doesn't have the button right there, so maybe they didn't want to get into some licensing issues. So that being said, we're just going to call it an iPad. But you have options here. You have options for setting your V speeds. I turned the bloody thing off. Sorry. Ooh, I said a bad word in English. Okay, sorry about that. You can adjust your V speeds here and set them. Let's go back. We have our payload and fuel options here. So this is actually pretty cool. Being able to do some of this right there on the side of the aircraft, pretty new and innovative. And by the way, not totally new. I know some other aircrafts do it. It's just that not a lot of them have incorporated that just yet. So let me be fair. Okay, so as you can see, I'm slowly starting to creep above 280. So again, you're going to be more engaged in trying to manage this aircraft, which is a good thing. Some like to do the long haul and all you're doing is watching your systems. Here you're going to have to do a little bit more active management, which brings me up to a really important topic. Why would you want to have the CRJ? Well, here is something that I've kind of felt when this came out. This addresses a niche. Now, here's what's kind of funny. Flight simming is a niche genre, but there are subcategories of that niche. And you have the guys that like to fly your long haul flights. And for the most part, I don't really know a lot of people that I'm hearing on VATSIM that are flying long haul flights on basic flight model aircraft. Like a CLS 747. They're usually doing this using study level aircraft. And that's cool. People like doing the long haul flights. I am amazed at how dedicated some people are to the long haul flights. But the thing is, sometimes, I think I read a study, it may have been in the manual it was in a review of this aircraft. And they were saying that on average people fly flights that are about 200 miles. And that's because obviously some people don't have the time or the patience to, invest in a long haul flight. They like the procedures. There's a whole lot of time that you would just be sitting there. So it makes sense that you might want to have an aircraft that's doing routes that are a little shorter. That being said, flight simmers tend, especially those who like doing study level aircraft, they tend to like doing real flight procedures. And there's this mental barrier people have about taking a 747 out of O'Hare Airport just to fly it to Detroit. Now, there are short hop flights for 747s. They do exist. I forget the website. I want to find it for you real fast, but I don't want to waste your time searching for it. But there's a website that you can go to that allows you to look and see what aircraft are flying around the world and what their routes are. You can search by route, you can search by type of aircraft. I saw them using a 747 flying from Chicago to New York. Not an incredibly long flight. In Japan, they sometimes have like short hops between different airports using 747s. So, okay. But for the most part, these are long haulers. And because unless you use a suspension of disbelief, you're really not necessarily going to get into using a 747 for a short hop. That being said, for the short flights, you'd want to have an aircraft that is more, realistically deals with those flights. Okay, we're about to get into our descent. I'm going to bring this down to 9,000 feet. Now watch what's going to happen. Hold that thought because we're going to continue that discussion. Let's go ahead and engage our vertical airspeed and drop it. We're going to descend at 1,800 feet per minute. Now, notice I got to get off the throttles because we're starting to accelerate. Okay, so for your shorter flights, let's zoom in here so that we can see our navs a little better. For our shorter flights, and actually I think I'm going to drop this down to 150s because that's where we're going to have to get to. For our shorter flights, their seat, you have, say, you want to use the Airbus 320 or the 318. It's a weird thing. I can't necessarily not call them long haulers because they actually fly, across the Atlantic using Airbus 318s. They're oh my gosh, I forgot the acronym. That's so embarrassing. But it's an acronym that basically says what ETOPS rated. So the ETOPS rating of an aircraft says whether it can be a 2-engine aircraft but flying routes over the Atlantic, and it has the ability to do so. So technically, that's a long hauler. But that thing also could be used as a commuter route, I suppose. But there was not a study level commuter route aircraft that was available, except for the Dash 8 by Majestic. But that's a turboprop. They did not have commuter jets. There were programs out there like the E-Jet series for the Embraers, but they really weren't quote-unquote study level aircraft. So this fills the niche of a niche of a niche. It is a study level aircraft used for regional routes that really wasn't there available for flight sim at the study level, level of complexity. So I think that this is actually going to get a lot of attention for those that want to do regional flights on follow flight procedures, study level aircraft, but don't necessarily want to do long haul flights. I really wanted to get that out. So now we're having a nice descent. We're coming down on GENOA. Let's see, can we see? Yep, there it is outside of our cockpit. And while we are in our descent, let me go ahead and show you the overhead. Now, if you've already purchased Virtual Call, you will notice that this overhead is a little bit more in depth, and the startups are much more in depth than you had with Virtual Call. Hitting Control E is not going to get you going in this, but you can, just like with PMD and PMDG, you can actually go to your basically the CDU, bring up the option of how you want to start it up, or you can actually go to the iPad that's over on the side and say, well, I want to start up in cold and dark, or I want to start up with engine ready to be started, or just everything's already running. Take your pick. But ooh, look at all the things I didn't do right. I know he's saying he's such a noob, but I didn't turn on my landing lights. But I'm gonna just go ahead and turn them on now. Well, I really shouldn't, because I'm not down. I'm not under 10,000 feet yet. But you'll get to that. Anyway, don't hate me. But also, let's see, what else can I show you? So you have your navs right here, which is another reason why I really, really want them to get it together and get this to work with my multi-panel, because it's a little bit more difficult for me to manage things and have to to manage all of these different things and have to jump around the screens when I could just reach over to my multi-panel and handle it like in a real aircraft. That would mean a lot to me. So I'm really hoping that comes together. Now you have a little opportunity to see the lighting that is in the cockpit. We're going to go ahead and zoom in our multi-display real fast. Let's see here. There we go. Because we're getting close to landing. Our rate of descent is good. Alright, so let's go to our navs. Our next indicated altitude needs to be 7,164 feet. So let's just go over here and handle that. Go down to 7,100. And we will keep that descent going. So far, things are going pretty well. I haven't had a chance to study the aircraft as much as I would like, but I think I have a basic understanding so that we can get through this landing using our ILS system, hoping this goes well. Okay, so we're about to come to our turning waypoint. I want to go ahead. Our speed is creeping up, but I am going to go ahead and drop our airspeed to 180 knots. I'm looking over here at the side of my approach, and what we're going to need to come down to begin our approach is at or above 3,370 feet. And that will be after the waypoint. So let's go ahead and start our descent for that. And we're going to go down. Let's go ahead and put it in 3,300. But what we're going to do is we're not going to have that crazy rate of descent because I don't want to run it too early. So it's at or above is basically what I'm saying. So, you know, that's cool. We can be above it. Just not above it. So we're going to do 1,500 feet. Now, so because you don't have auto throttle, another thing is that your system does not calculate your top of descent, or for anyone that's new, your top of descent is where you're going to start to descend for arrival. So there's a rule of thumb that they explained in the manual, which is actually pretty cool. You take the first two digits of your altitude, and then you multiply that number by 3. And that would be the distance from the airport where you should start to descend. So if we were flying at 30,000 feet, that would be the two digits would be 30. Multiply that by 3, that would mean that you should start to descend around 90 miles away from the airport. And basic rule of thumb, but they do have charts available for you to look at that will help you, excuse me, just getting all my things together, that will help you negotiate. Oh my gosh, I am way too high. Okay, we are going to cancel. Well, actually, am I? Well, I said at or above. Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay, so I'm way too high for this approach. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to just do just like in the other video. I am going to descend, and I'm going to do this manually. We're going to descend, but I'm going to just do one loop around. Get a nice gentle turn, and we should be spot on for 3,100 feet, and that will solve that problem. Okay, so as I was saying, so that's a way to calculate, to kind of ballpark when you need to descend. Just take the first two digits of your altitude, multiply by 3, and that distance from your airport is where you should start your descent. This is a rule of thumb that they mentioned in the Aerosoft manual, or the tutorial for this particular flight. So I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, now we're going to switch
terrain.
over here. Yes, I see terrain, so let's pull our nose up just a bit. And our airspeed is starting to come down, so we'll give it a little bit more throttle. As I said, you are going to have to be more actively engaged with this aircraft of finding where the right amount of throttle is for you for a given rate of descent. Okay, we're coming up on our airspeed, so our altitude. So I'm going to bring the nose up. And that means I'm going to reduce throttle because we're starting to pick up speed. Since we're going to be on the approach, I'm going to arm the spoilers. Okay, we should come out just right. Okay, airspeed is dropping. Okay, 3,300. Now that we have our nose up, our airspeed is going to drop. So that's a good thing. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to change our navs to don't go below. Oh, see, dropping below. Sorry. Here we go. Let's get that altitude back. I should have set earlier just going to make this a visual approach, which is totally fine. Okay, so we're going to drop our speed, and we're going to, let's get to 180 before I drop my landing gear. Okay. Good. Okay, so this is a really interesting approach. As I said in the last video, I have to sometimes force myself not to admire it because I've got things to do here. Okay, let's bring our heading around. Completely unprofessional. I heard people say that once. I just love the way he said it, so I'm just going to totally did it. I'm sorry. Alright, so okay. And I don't know if you noticed this, but the waypoints make this a slightly offset approach so that you're not on the runway's path. Bring back that airspeed. Okay, there we go. Let's drop the landing gear. I know, right? We're going too fast. Let's, I have totally busted this approach. You know what? Sometimes you just have to not be afraid to go around. I'm going to see if we can avoid that. Alright, our speeds drop. Good. We're actually on a good slope. And I'm going to... Yes, I know. Forgive me. Get it down. Get it down. There we go. There we go. Flaps are out.
1,000.
Oh yeah, we're dropping speed. Good.
Sync rate. Sync rate.
I know I totally busted this, but again, okay, we can lower our flaps, give it some throttle because we do not want to drop below 140 here. Okay, there we go. This is turning out fine.
400.
Okay. I'm going to zoom in here because I can see my instruments. You may not be able to because I zoomed in. That's all right. Touch this down nice and gentle.
200.
There we go.
Sync rate.
100.
There we go.
50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Alright, reversers out. Straight. Spoiler should be up. Good. I know. Completely ugly landing. I'm telling you, my followers, I apologize. But okay, now we can turn off the reversers, drop air brakes, and we can depart the runway. At least my departure from the runway was smooth. Oh my gosh. Okay. We're bringing up the flaps. I think, no, I shouldn't have brought the flaps until I crossed that line, but okay. Well, we messed up so much else. Why worry now, right? Alright, let me check the tracker so we can follow. Alright, so I hope that this video, one, gave you a nice little overview of the system, some of the systems. Of course, I have not gotten to everything, but I wanted to get this out because I know some of you might be chomping at the bit and like, oh, should I buy it? Should I buy it? I'm on the fence, you know. Well, this will give you a chance to look at it. I've talked about some of the things that concern, you know, the difference between the study level aircraft and the basic flight model aircraft. Hopefully that will give you some insight as to what you want to do as it pertains to buying which aircraft. And since I'm doing it, let's just go ahead and get ground services to see us in. And what I think I'm going to do is come in on 205. I know this is medium. and I'm not a medium, but hey, who cares? And we'll do Air Italia. I hope this gives you some insight into which aircraft you think you might want to fly. Again, I like it, I have to say. I think I'm going to have fun getting to know this aircraft. I know a lot of airports that I would enjoy flying into, because as I've said, I've flown on the CRJs before. So, you know, that is a little problem, a glitch that I have with this aircraft. I've heard it's called a, oh gosh, the word for it is escaping me. It always happens, it escapes me when I am on air and need to remember these things. But let's see, where's my crew? Where's my ground crew? I don't see them. We had this problem once before, didn't we? Let's see here. Let me just look. I said, let's just change it. Since I'm right here, let's go change requested facility. We're going to go to gate, and we're going to ask for 404. But 404, that's what the problem was. I gave it the wrong number. Okay, previous. We want 20. Oh, they skip. So we'll do 202. And then Air Italia. Let's look over here. Where are you? I can't even find my ground crew. Alright, well, we're not going to waste your time with this. I just totally jacked this up. Where are these guys? So we're going to just bring it in over here to 404, which is where I think I was the last time when we did the previous review for Virtual Call. This is cool. And I have a key set up just for this. Oh, and by the way, remember I had a little bit of a complaint for the shock absorbers on the nose of the Virtual Call. This one seems a bit more realistic. Okay. So let's go ahead and put on the parking brakes. I hope you enjoyed this review. I really did want to kind of give you an overview of the system, let you see some of it at work, distinguish between, do I want to get the Aerosoft version or do I want to get the Virtual Call version? One other thing I didn't bring up, the difference in price. So the Virtual Call, if I remember, it was like around 16 euros, and the Aerosoft version is about 59. And of course, there was a lot more effort that had to be put into this. I remember this being listed like over 2 years ago, and it was just taking forever to come out, and they had to pay developers to do this over the period of time. So hey, I get why there's a difference in price. This, when it's a more in-depth system, it takes more time to program. So you have your price difference. 16 euros versus 59 euros, or is it 49? It's one of the two. You can, go either to Sim Market. That's where I get a lot of my stuff. But you can go to the Aerosoft website. You can go to the Pro Flight Shop, I believe it's called, Simware. They all have them. But all this is to say, that you have the price difference, you have the flight model complexity. Take your pick, but if you're looking for a realistic flight model and the systems that go along with flying a regional jet, then Aerosoft's definitely the way you want to go. But for those of you who like to just jump into the cockpit and fly, there is no shame in the Virtual Call aircraft. I think it's very fine for what it purports to be, and it is exactly that. So I hope this helps you make a better decision as to what you want to buy. Thank you for tuning in. Please drop me a couple of likes. Please remember to subscribe. and I will see you in the virtual skies.